self-love, equating it with an unchanging state of self-acceptance. While it is true that loving oneself involves acceptance, it does not mean resigning to who we are at this moment as the final version of ourselves. Growth and expansion are fundamental aspects of life. The person you are today is not meant to be the same person you will be in 5, 10, or 20 years. Every experience, challenge, and lesson contributes to your evolution. If self-love becomes an excuse for stagnation, it loses its true purpose. When people fall in love with themselves to the point of resisting growth, they risk becoming trapped in a fixed mindset. They may believe they have already reached their peak, that there is nothing more to learn or improve. This mindset prevents them from embracing new perspectives, stepping outside their comfort zones, and challenging their existing beliefs. True self-love does not mean shielding oneself from discomfort or change. It means trusting oneself enough to face the unknown with courage. A person who truly loves themselves understands that growth is an ongoing process. They are not afraid to acknowledge their weaknesses or confront areas of their life that need improvement. They welcome feedback and constructive criticism, not as a threat to their self-worth, but as an opportunity to become a better version of themselves. They recognize that self-love is not about being perfect, but about being willing to evolve, adapt, and refine their character. The danger of excessive self-admiration is that it can create a false sense of superiority. When someone becomes too enamored with themselves, they may close themselves off to external insights, believing that their current state is the ultimate definition of who they are. This can lead to arrogance, resistance to change, and an inability to see the value in other perspectives. It can also hinder relationships. As an individual who is overly self-absorbed may struggle to connect with others on a deeper level. Self-love should be the fuel that propels personal growth, not the anchor that keeps one from evolving. It should empower individuals to take risks, embrace challenges, and strive for excellence without fear of failure. Growth is not a sign of self-rejection, it is a sign of self-respect. When we love ourselves truly, we give ourselves permission to explore new dimensions of our potential, to challenge our limitations, and to push beyond what we once thought possible. The key to balancing self-love and growth is maintaining a mindset of curiosity and openness. A person who genuinely loves themselves is not threatened by change. They are excited by it. They understand that life is a continuous journey of self-discovery, and each phase presents an opportunity to become more aligned with their highest potential. They do not see self-love as a final destination, but as a dynamic and evolving relationship with themselves. When self-love becomes an excuse for avoiding challenges, it transforms into self-sabotage. Some people cling to their current identity, fearing that change may invalidate who they are. However, true self-love is not about rigidly holding on to the past. It is about embracing the fluidity of personal growth. It is about recognizing that evolving does not mean losing oneself, but rather expanding into something greater. There is a fine line between healthy self-love and excessive self-admiration. One nurtures growth while the other stifles it. The difference lies in whether self-love is used as a tool for empowerment or as a shield against change. Those who understand this balance approach life with humility, acknowledging their strengths while remaining open to improvement. They recognize that their potential is limitless and that self-love should be a catalyst for continuous transformation. Ultimately, self-love is not about staying the same, but about having the courage to become the person you are meant to be. It is about appreciating who you are today while remaining excited about who you can become. The journey of growth never ends. And self-love should be the force that propels you forward rather than the comfort that keeps you still. Growth requires stepping beyond your current self-position, because true transformation happens when you challenge the limitations of who you believe you are. Many people construct a mental framework of their identity based on past experiences, societal expectations, and personal beliefs. While this self-position provides a sense of stability, it can also become a prison, confining them to a fixed way of thinking and behaving. When someone becomes too attached to their current self-portrayal, they may resist opportunities for growth out of fear that changing will mean losing a part of themselves. However, real self-love means recognizing that personal evolution is not about losing who you are, but about discovering new dimensions of yourself. The comfort zone is often built around the familiar aspects of self-identity. People tend to gravitate toward what feels safe, predictable, and affirming. They engage in behaviors that reinforce their current self-perception and avoid situations that challenge their beliefs about themselves. While this may provide temporary security, it also prevents deep transformation. Growth requires stepping outside this familiar identity and being willing to see oneself from new perspectives. It demands courage, as it involves embracing uncertainty, facing discomfort, and questioning deeply held beliefs. Every person has a subconscious narrative that shapes their actions and decisions. This narrative is influenced by past experiences, childhood conditioning, and external feedback from others. For example, someone who has always seen themselves as shy might avoid social situations, reinforcing the belief that they are not outgoing. Someone who identifies as uncreative might never attempt artistic pursuits, further solidifying their self-perception. These self-imposed labels create invisible barriers that limit potential. True growth begins when individuals challenge these labels and recognize that they are not defined by their past. Breaking free from a rigid self-pigeon requires self-awareness and intentional action. It means questioning the stories one tells about oneself and being open to the idea that those stories may no longer be accurate. It involves experimenting with new behaviors, taking on challenges that feel unfamiliar, and allowing oneself to explore new possibilities. This can be uncomfortable because the mind naturally resists change. The ego wants consistency, predictability, and affirmation of existing beliefs. However, the most profound transformations occur when people are willing to disrupt their old patterns and step into the unknown. Stepping beyond one's self-picture also involves embracing failure and uncertainty. Growth is not a linear process. It involves setbacks, mistakes, and moments of doubt. People who are too attached to their current identity may fear failure because it threatens their sense of self. However, failure is not a reflection of worth, but a necessary part of evolution. Those who grow the most are the ones who see challenges as learning opportunities rather than as threats to their identity. They understand that failure does not define them, but refines them, shaping them into a stronger and wiser version of themselves. A key element of personal growth is adaptability. The world is constantly changing, and those who resist change often find themselves struggling to keep up. People who cling to a rigid self-image may reject new ideas, resist learning new skills, or refuse to adjust to shifting circumstances. This resistance creates stagnation. On the other hand, those who embrace adaptability view change as an opportunity rather than a threat. They are willing to redefine themselves, shift their perspectives, and continuously evolve in response to new experiences. Growth also requires surrounding oneself with people who challenge and inspire. Many individuals remain stuck in their current self-imposition because they surround themselves with those who reinforce their existing beliefs. They seek comfort and familiarity rather than inspiration from those who have expanded beyond their own limitations. To grow, it is essential to engage with people who encourage self-discovery, offer different perspectives, and push for higher levels of achievement. These influences act as mirrors, reflecting back not just who someone is, but who they have the potential to become. The process of stepping beyond self-picture requires a mindset shift. Instead of seeing identity as a fixed concept, it helps to view it as a fluid and evolving state. People are not meant to remain the same throughout their lives. They are designed to grow, adapt, and reinvent themselves. The most fulfilled individuals are those who allow themselves to explore different aspects of their personality, talents, and aspirations without fear of losing who they were. Fear is one of the greatest obstacles to growth. People fear the unknown, fear judgment, and fear that they will not succeed in becoming something more. However, fear is often an illusion, a projection of past experiences onto the future. The only way to overcome this fear is through action. By deliberately stepping beyond what feels safe and familiar, each time a person challenges their self-imposed limits, they expand their self-concept, proving to themselves that they are more than they once believed. Growth is a process of continuous self-reinvention. It is about recognizing that who you are today is just one version of yourself, and there are countless other versions waiting to be discovered. It requires embracing the unknown, trusting the process, and allowing yourself to evolve into the person you are meant to be. Attachment to a fixed identity limits personal evolution because it prevents individuals from embracing change, exploring new possibilities, and discovering untapped potential. Many people hold on to a rigid self-perceived, believing that their identity is static and unchangeable. They define themselves by past experiences, labels given to them by society, or roles they have played in their personal and professional life. While having a sense of identity provides stability and a sense of self, becoming too attached to a fixed version of oneself can create barriers to growth and transformation. People often develop a self-concept based on their upbringing, environment, and past experiences. They may believe they are a certain type of person, introverted or extroverted, logical or creative, strong or weak. These beliefs shape their thoughts, actions, and decisions. However, when they become too attached to this identity, they unconsciously limit themselves to behaviors and choices that align with it. If someone believes they are not good at public speaking, they may never attempt to improve that skill, reinforcing the belief that they are incapable. If someone sees themselves as unathletic, they may avoid physical activities, missing opportunities to build strength and confidence. This self-reinforcing cycle keeps people stuck in a version of themselves that may no longer serve them. A fixed identity can also lead to resistance. When life presents opportunities for growth, change is a natural part of existence, yet many resist it because it threatens their sense of self. When people are too attached to who they think they are, they may struggle to adapt to new roles, relationships, or challenges. They may reject feedback that suggests they need to improve or resist taking on unfamiliar responsibility. This resistance creates stagnation as they prioritize maintaining their existing identity over evolving into a better version of themselves. The fear of change becomes a barrier that prevents them from expanding their potential. Another consequence of a rigid self-position is the limitation it places on creativity and problem solving. When individuals see themselves only in one way, they filter their experiences through a narrow perspective. They may dismiss new ideas, reject unconventional approaches, or overlook solutions that require them to step outside their usual way of thinking. The most innovative and successful people are those who allow their identity to be flexible, adapting to new circumstances and embracing different ways of looking at the world. Growth comes from openness to new experiences, and clinging too tightly to a fixed identity can close off those opportunities. Relationships can also suffer when a person is overly attached to their self-image. If someone strongly identifies as independent, they may struggle to ask for help or build meaningful connections with others. If they define themselves as always being right, they may have difficulty accepting differing perspectives or admitting when they are wrong. Holding on to a rigid identity in relationships can lead to conflicts, misunderstandings, and emotional isolation. True connection comes from being willing to evolve, to see oneself from another's perspective, and to adapt in ways that strengthen relationships rather than limit them. In many cases, attachment to identity is rooted in fear. The fear of losing oneself, of facing the unknown, or of stepping into unfamiliar territory. People may feel a sense of security in knowing who they are, even if that identity is limiting. Letting go of a fixed self-picture requires trust in the process of growth. It involves understanding that identity is not something to be held on to tightly, but something to be explored and expanded. By embracing change, individuals open themselves up to a greater sense of freedom, allowing them to move beyond their perceived limitations and step into a more fulfilling and dynamic version of themselves. A flexible identity allows for continuous reinvention. The most successful and fulfilled people are those who see themselves as evolving beings, capable of learning new skills, adopting new mindsets, and becoming whatever is necessary to meet the challenges of life. They do not see change as a threat, but as an opportunity to expand their understanding of who they are when they encounter difficulties. They do not cling to their old identity, but adapt, grow, and redefine themselves to overcome obstacles. This adaptability is what allows people to thrive in a constantly changing world. Personal evolution requires letting go of outdated versions of oneself. What worked in the past may not work in the future, and clinging to old identities can hold people back. A person who once identified as timid may need to develop confidence to pursue new opportunities. Someone who always relied on logic may need to embrace intuition to navigate uncertain situations. Growth happens when individuals allow themselves to evolve beyond their past definitions and embrace the infinite possibilities of who they can become. The ability to let go of a fixed identity is essential for personal and professional success. Industries change, relationships evolve, and personal aspirations shift over time. Those who are willing to adapt and reinvent themselves stay relevant and fulfilled, while those who refuse to evolve often struggle to keep up. The most effective leaders, innovators, and change makers are those who are open to transformation, willing to unlearn old ways of thinking and ready to embrace new aspects of themselves as they navigate life's ever-changing landscape. True self-love embraces change and transformation because genuine self-acceptance is not about remaining the same, but about evolving into the highest version of oneself. Many people mistake self-love for self-complacency, believing that accepting themselves means staying exactly as they are. However, true self-love is not about avoiding change. It is about valuing oneself enough to grow, improve, and move beyond limitations. When people truly love themselves, they do not settle for stagnation. Instead, they commit to continuous growth, knowing that transformation is a natural and necessary part of life. Change is often uncomfortable, and the human mind tends to resist it. People find comfort in the familiar, even when the familiar no longer serves them. They hold on to old habits, thought patterns, and behaviors because stepping into the unknown feels risky. However, real self-love requires the courage to embrace discomfort for the sake of growth. It means recognizing that who one is today is not the final version of oneself, but rather a work in progress. When individuals truly love themselves, they do not fear change. They welcome it as an opportunity to become better, wiser, and stronger. Many people remain stuck in repetitive cycles because they confuse comfort with happiness. They believe that staying the same will keep them safe, but in reality, avoiding change leads to stagnation. Growth happens when people push beyond their perceived limitations, take risks, and challenge themselves in new ways. True self-love involves believing in one's ability to adapt and thrive, even in uncertain situations. It means trusting that personal evolution is not about losing oneself, but about discovering deeper and more authentic aspects of who they are. Transformation often requires letting go of past versions of oneself. People may feel attached to old identities, habits, and beliefs that once defined them. But true self-love means having the strength to release what no longer aligns with their highest potential. This process can be challenging because it requires honesty and self-reflection. It involves recognizing when certain mindsets, relationships, or behaviors are holding them back and making the conscious choice to change. Letting go does not mean rejecting the past, but rather acknowledging that growth requires moving forward. Self-love also means being patient with oneself during the process of change. Growth is rarely linear. It involves setbacks, failures, and moments of doubt. People who truly love themselves do not punish themselves for struggling. Instead, they treat themselves with kindness and compassion. They understand that transformation takes time and that mistakes are part of the learning process. Rather than fearing failure, they see it as an opportunity to refine their character and build resilience. Embracing change also means staying open to new perspectives and possibilities. People who are resistant to transformation often limit themselves to a narrow way of thinking. They hold on to rigid beliefs and refuse to consider alternative viewpoints. True self-love involves intellectual and emotional flexibility, the ability to challenge one's own assumptions and remain curious about the world. When individuals allow themselves to explore new ideas and experiences, they expand their understanding of themselves and their place in the world. Self-awareness is the foundation of balanced self-love because it allows individuals to distinguish between genuine self-acceptance and the ego's attachment to a fixed identity. Many people believe that loving themselves means embracing everything about who they are without question, but true self-love requires a deeper level of reflection. It is not about blindly accepting every thought, behavior, or habit, but about developing an honest understanding of oneself. Without self-awareness, self-love can become a disguise for complacency, leading people to remain stuck in patterns that do not serve their growth. When individuals lack self-awareness, they may mistake self-love for self-indulgence. They may justify behaviors that keep them from evolving by saying, "This is just who I am," rather than recognizing that they have the power to change. Self-awareness allows people to observe their patterns, identify areas for improvement, and make conscious choices that align with their highest potential. It enables them to differentiate between habits that genuinely contribute to their well-being and those that stem from fear, insecurity, or resistance to growth. True self-love is not about excusing one's flaws, but about embracing the responsibility to evolve beyond them. Self-awareness also helps individuals navigate the fine line between confidence and arrogance. While self-love fosters a healthy sense of self-worth, a lack of self-awareness can lead to an inflated ego. When people become too attached to their self-picture, they may develop a mindset that resists feedback, refuses to acknowledge weaknesses, and prioritizes being right over learning and growing. They may surround themselves with people who reinforce their existing beliefs rather than those who challenge them to expand their perspectives. True self-love does not seek validation at the expense of growth. It remains open to self-examination and constructive criticism. Developing self-awareness requires a willingness to question one's thoughts and behaviors without fear. Many people avoid self-reflection because they are afraid of what they might discover. They fear facing their insecurities, acknowledging their mistakes, or admitting that they need to change. However, self-awareness is not about self-judgment. It is about self-discovery. It allows individuals to recognize patterns that no longer serve them, identify limiting beliefs, and make choices that align with their highest aspirations. It is the key to breaking free from unconscious behaviors that keep them from reaching their full potential. One of the most effective ways to cultivate self-awareness is through mindfulness. When individuals practice mindfulness, they develop the ability to observe their thoughts and emotions without becoming controlled by them. They learn to recognize when they are acting out of habit, reacting from a place of fear, or making choices that do not align with their values. Mindfulness creates space for intentionality, allowing people to respond to life with clarity and wisdom rather than being driven by automatic patterns. It helps them become more attuned to their needs, desires, and motivations, leading to more authentic and fulfilling choices. Self-awareness also plays a crucial role in relationships. When people lack self-awareness, they may project their unresolved emotions onto others, blame external circumstances for their struggles, or struggle to communicate effectively. They may not realize how their behaviors affect those around them, leading to misunderstandings and conflict. On the other hand, individuals who are deeply self-aware take responsibility for their actions, recognize their emotional triggers, and engage in relationships with greater empathy and understanding. They do not expect others to fulfill their unmet needs, but instead take ownership of their personal growth. Another important aspect of self-awareness is the ability to recognize when self-love turns into self-absorption. While self-love encourages individuals to prioritize their well-being, self-absorption causes them to become overly focused on their own experiences, often at the expense of others. People who lack self-awareness may become preoccupied with how they are perceived, constantly seeking validation or placing their needs above all else. True self-love fosters a sense of inner security, allowing individuals to be fully present for others without feeling the need to prove their worth. It creates a balance between honoring oneself and contributing meaningfully to the world. Self-awareness also helps individuals stay aligned with their values. Many people claim to love themselves, but engage in behaviors that contradict their core beliefs. They may say they value health, but neglect their well-being, claim they seek deep connections, but avoid vulnerability, or express a desire for success, but resist the discipline required to achieve it. Without self-awareness, it is easy to fall into patterns of self-deception where actions and values are misaligned. True self-love involves the courage to hold oneself accountable and make choices that reflect one's deepest truths. The balance between self-love and humility is essential for true personal growth, because while self-love nurtures confidence and self-worth, humility keeps the ego in check and ensures that growth remains an ongoing process. Many people misunderstand self-love as an excuse to place themselves above others, believing that embracing their worth means demanding recognition or prioritizing their needs at all costs. However, genuine self-love does not lead to arrogance or entitlement. It is rooted in a deep understanding of one's value while maintaining an awareness that growth is a lifelong journey. True self-love and humility work together, creating a foundation for continuous learning, meaningful relationships, and a more profound sense of purpose. One of the greatest dangers of self-love without humility is the illusion of superiority. When people believe they have reached a state of self-acceptance that places them above others, they risk stagnation. They may reject feedback, dismiss alternative perspectives, or assume they no longer need to improve. This mindset prevents them from evolving because it creates a false sense of completion, as if they have already achieved the highest version of themselves. True self-love does not seek superiority, it fosters self-respect, while recognizing that everyone has room to grow, learn, and refine their character. Humility allows individuals to remain open to feedback and constructive criticism. When people lack humility, they may perceive any suggestion for improvement as a threat to their self-worth. They may react defensively, resist acknowledging their flaws, or surround themselves only with those who reinforce their current beliefs. However, self-love does not mean rejecting opportunities for growth. It means having the confidence to listen, evaluate, and apply feedback without feeling diminished. Those who truly love themselves do not fear correction because they understand that learning from others is a valuable part of the journey toward becoming their best selves. Another key aspect of balancing self-love with humility is the ability to recognize one's strengths without diminishing others. People who struggle with humility often seek validation by comparing themselves to others, using their achievements or personal growth as a measure of superiority. They may feel the need to prove their worth by showcasing their successes or belittling those who have not reached the same level of awareness. However, true self-love does not thrive on competition. It thrives on authenticity. A person who is genuinely secure in themselves does not need to look down on others to feel valuable. Instead, they celebrate their own progress while also appreciating the strengths and potential in those around them. Humility also fosters deeper and more meaningful relationships. When self-love turns into self-absorption, individuals may become overly focused on their own needs, emotions, and desires, neglecting the perspectives and experiences of others. They may expect admiration without reciprocating appreciation, assume that their struggles are more significant than those of others, or struggle to form genuine connections because they prioritize their self and connection over mutual understanding. In contrast, a person who balances self-love with humility approaches relationships with empathy, curiosity, and a willingness to listen. They recognize that every individual has their own journey and that mutual respect is essential for meaningful connection.